Men are not stronger than women. Well, at least according to a group of preteens when they were asked what their thoughts are on the matter. Take a look.
Boys are stronger than girls.
Well, physically, for the most part, in gender roles and stuff like that, boys are just supposed to be stronger. That's just a thing that happens. They work out at the gym. And yeah, girls certainly can work out too if they want. But again, it's more common for boys.
Disagree or step forward?
Who's one to say what gender, depends, who's stronger? It doesn't matter what gender you are, it matters who you are. It doesn't matter what you were born, it matters what you want to be!
You could be referring to strength in so many ways, physically, emotionally, where the strength in your body is placed, it all just depends.
I play volleyball, and sometimes we play the boys' teams, and we've crushed them a couple times.
These preconceived notions that, boys go to gyms, girls, stay at home. One of my best friends is a girl, and, she's stronger than half the guys I know.
Okay, so a lot to unpack here. First of all, huge kudos to that first kid. I mean, it takes a lot of guts to be able to stand up on your own and to present an opinion that clearly everybody around you doesn't agree with. And I'm sure it would have been very difficult at his age as well, because kids typically that age are still learning to socialize, and so they can be very self-conscious about what they think or what they believed, and so perhaps they're more inclined to agree with the group and not rock the boat in that regard. And so massive kudos to this kid for stepping up and telling the truth. In a way, it was a little unfair because the question was a baited question, when they says boys are stronger than girls. Well, what exactly do you mean by stronger? And one of the girls in the clip actually alluded to this. Do you mean stronger physically? Do you mean emotionally? Because when you consider strength, there's an array of factors that have to come into consideration. So let's go through some of them. So physically, on average, men are stronger than women. I mean, this is a pretty obvious fact. It's a fact that hasn't been disputed for millennia. However, the question that was asked in the video was, are boys stronger than girls? And so that could be a different story. I mean, if we're talking about prepubescent boys and girls, then the answer is no. They're actually the same. And they're the same because boys and girls before they hit puberty are roughly on average the same size. But of course, once boys hit puberty and the testosterone kicks in, then everything changes. Not only do boys grow taller, but their bone structure starts to develop in the upper body area, which helps them with their upper body strength, which is designed for physical combat. And the same cannot be said for females. Instead, girls, once they hit puberty, then it's their lower area that their bone structure will change, which is designed to accommodate for pregnancy and for childbirth. And so from a biological perspective, really, it's a no-brainer. Men on average are stronger than women. So then what about emotionally? Are men on average emotionally stronger than women? Well, I would argue, yes, they are. However, stronger is probably not quite the right word to use. In fact, a better phrase would probably be that women on average are more emotionally sensitive than men. And how do we know that? Well, we know that because from a personality temperament perspective, women rank higher in trait neuroticism than men. And then you might be asking, well, what is neuroticism? And I will tell you what neuroticism is. If you are highly neurotic, what that means is that you are more sensitive to negative emotion than most people, and you are more sensitive to a detection of threat. So women on average are more sensitive to negative emotion than men. Now, why would that be? I guess the main reason would be because the world is a more dangerous place to women than it is to men. And I'll give you a couple reasons why. Firstly, because women are physically weaker than men, and we talked about this before. So if you have a physical altercation between a man and a woman, then on average, the woman is going to be at a far greater disadvantage than the man. And this is because of the disparity in their upper body strength. Men are designed to have an upper body strength post-puberty, designed for physical combat, and women don't have that same design, so they're physically weaker. Secondly, because women are more sexually vulnerable than men. And so, in other words, the consequences of unplanned sex would be much dire for a woman than they would be for a man. You might have a man might get arrested for some disorderly sexual activity that he engages in. However, for a woman, if she engages in unplanned sex, she has to bear the consequence of bearing a child and then raising that child, which is far more costly, obviously, for a woman than it is for a man. And then, of course, that leads us into our third point, which is that a woman is designed to be the primary caregiver and nurturer of the child that she bears. And so she's going to have a deeper emotional connection with her child than the father does, because she's had this child in her for 9 months. She's born this child, and she has that physical connection and emotional connection with them. And that means that she is going to bear the responsibility to protect that child, which means that to have a heightened sense of detection of threat is going to be very beneficial to the mother. So perhaps this is why women on average are sensitive to negative emotion more so than men, because the purpose of negative emotion is to detect threat and to defend ourselves from it. And it could be argued, obviously, that women are in much more need of that than men. What's interesting is that when you have this idea that men are stronger than women, it's an idea that tends to be treated with disgust and contempt in our Western world today, which is an absolute travesty, to be honest. And I think, well, perhaps one of the leading contributors to this would be the feminist movement. And so you have this kind of demand that that women should be equal to men at all forms, shapes, and sizes. And that there should be no difference between the sexes whatsoever, which is, well, it'll do us far more harm than good, because what it does is it pushes the two sexes, the men and the woman, to operate away from their natural proclivities and their natural desires inside, their drives. They're pushed away from their drives, which is not a good thing. And perhaps it's this feminist view that is infiltrated through the education system, which has led these kids in the video to come to the conclusions that they came to. Really, it's just, well, they're parroting off what their teachers have been saying. And it's like at least that first kid was willing to think for himself. Something I would love to say to those kids if I was there in the room with them is that, yes, men are stronger than women. But you know what? That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. We need strong men. In fact, one of the biggest reasons why the world is in such a mess that it's in is because men have en masse decided to abdicate the responsibility that comes with the domain of the strength that they embody. And so men have become weak. It's like men look out for themselves instead of looking out for other people. Or men tend to put themselves first instead of putting their wife first or their kids first. In fact, we have so many men that aren't even willing to enter relationships at all because they're afraid of commitment or I don't know, goodness knows what it is. But men are just chosen to abdicate responsibility collectively, which is, well, I would say the feminist movement would have a lot to answer for in that. And then, of course, if men do decide to take a step of faith and take a step of courage and bear the responsibility that they feel driven inside to bear, then instead of encountering praise and encouragement, they just get met often with persecution and disgust. They just get labeled as toxic and oppressive. And it's like, no wonder why men are just giving up responsibility altogether. And I think it was Jordan Peterson who said, you know, if you're going to label me as oppressive, then why the hell am I going to play? If I get no credit for bearing responsibility, you can be sure as hell that I'm not going to bear any. And then all the women are wondering, well, where have all the good men gone? And this is the state that we're in at the moment. It seems like such a dire situation for men. But it doesn't have to be like this. If we just embrace the strength that men are designed to have and encourage them to bear the responsibility that they are designed to bear, and a responsibility that if they do bear it, they will give them meaning and give them fulfillment, as well as a trove of other benefits to society, then the world would certainly be a better place. So anyway, the kid was right. Men are stronger than women because they're supposed to be stronger than women. But men are supposed to use that strength to bear the weight of the world, take responsibility, and protect women and children. So let us never discourage that. Well, whether you're a man or a woman, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, a like, and subscribe for more content.